Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I hope you're having an amazing day. It is Sunday, July 6th, 2014, and we're going to read Enoch chapter 90. The first verses 1 through 5 is the third period from Alexander the Great to the Greco-Syrian domination. It's one of those days. And I saw till that in this manner 35 shepherds undertook the pasturing of the sheep, and they severally completed their periods as did the first, and others received them in their hands to pasture them for their period, each shepherd in his own period. And after that I saw in my vision all the birds of heaven coming, the eagles, the vultures, the kites, the ravens, but the eagles led all the birds, and they began to devour those sheep, and to pick out their eyes, and to devour their flesh. And the sheep cried out, because their flesh was being devoured by the birds. And as for me, I looked and lamented in my sleep over the shepherd who pastured the sheep. And I saw until those sheep were devoured by the dogs and eagles and kites, and they left neither flesh nor skin nor sinew remaining on them, till only their bones stood there. And their bones too fell to the earth, and the sheep became few. And I saw until that 23 had undertaken the pasturing and completed in their several periods 58 times. Verses 6 through 12. Fourth period, from the Greco-Syrian domination to the Maccabean revolt. But behold, lambs were born by those white sheep, and they began to open their eyes and see, and to cry to the sheep. Yea, they cried to them, but they did not hearken to what they said to them, but were exceedingly deaf, and their eyes were very exceedingly blinded. And I saw in the vision how the ravens flew upon those lambs. And I saw in the vision how the ravens flew upon those lambs, and took one of those lambs, and dashed the sheep in pieces, and devoured them. And I saw till horns grew upon those lambs, and the ravens cast down their horns, and I saw till they sprouted a great horn of one of those sheep, and their eyes were open. And it looked at them, and their eyes opened, and it cried to the sheep, and the rams saw it, and all ran to it. Now, notwithstanding all those eagles and vultures and ravens and kites still kept tearing the sheep, and swooping down upon them, and devouring them, still the sheep remained silent, but the rams lamented and cried out. And those ravens fought and battled with it, and sought to lay low its horn, but they had no power over it. Verses 13 through 19, the last assault of the Gentiles on the Jews, where 13 through 15 and 16 through 18 are doublets. And I saw till the shepherd and the eagles and those vultures and kites came, and they cried to the ravens that they should break the horn of the ram, and they battled and fought with it, and it battled with them, and cried with its help might come. All the eagles and vultures and ravens and kites were gathered together, and they came with them all the sheep of the field. Yea, they all came together, and helped each other to break the horn of the ram. And I saw till a great sword was given to the sheep, that the sheep proceeded against all the beasts of the field to slay them. And all the beasts and the birds of the heaven fled before their face. And I saw till that man who wrote down the names of the shepherds, and carried up into the presence of the Lord of the sheep, came and helped it, and showed it everything. He had come down for the help of the ram. And I saw till the Lord of the sheep came unto them in wrath, and all who saw him fled, and they all fell into a shadow from before his face. And I saw that man who wrote the book according to the command of the Lord, till he opened the book concerning the destruction with which those 12 last shepherds had brought, and showed that they had destroyed much more than their predecessors before the Lord of the sheep. And I saw till the Lord of the sheep came unto them, and looked in his hand the staff of wrath, and smote the earth. And the earth clave asunder, and all the beasts and all the birds of the heaven fell from among those sheep, and they were swallowed up in the earth, and it covered them. Verses 20 through 27. Judgment of the fallen angels, the shepherds, and the apostates. And I saw till a throne was erected in the pasture of the Lord of the sheep, sat himself therein. And the other took the sealed book, and opened those books before the Lord of the sheep. And the Lord called those men with the 7 first white ones, and commanded that they should bring before him, beginning with the first star which led the way, all the stars whose privy members were like those of the horses, and they brought them all before him. And he said to that man who wrote before him, Bring one of those 7 white ones, and said unto him, Take those 70 shepherds to whom I delivered the sheep, and who, taking them on their own authority, slew more than I commanded them. And behold, they were all bound, I saw, and they all stood before him. And the judgment was held first over the stars. And they were judged and found guilty, and went to the place of condemnation. And they were cast into an abyss, full of fire and flaming, and full of pillars of fire. And those 70 shepherds were judged and found guilty, and they were cast into the fiery abyss. And I saw at that time how a like abyss was open in the midst of the earth, full of fire, and they brought those blinded sheep, and they were all judged and found guilty, and cast into the fiery abyss, and they burned. Now this abyss was to the right of that house, and I saw those sheep burning, and their bones burning. Verses 28 through 38, the New Jerusalem, the conversion of the surveying Gentiles, the resurrection of the righteous, the Messiah. And I stood up to see till they folded up that house, and carried off all the pillars, and all the beams and ornaments of the house were at the same time folded up with it. And they carried it off, and laid it in a place in the south of the land. And I saw till the Lord of the sheep brought a new house, greater and loftier than the first, and set it up in the place of the first, which had bare folded up. All its pillars were new, and its ornaments were new, and larger than those of the first. The old one which had been taken away, and all the sheep were within it. And I saw all the sheep which had been left, and all the beasts on the earth, and all the birds of the heaven, falling down and doing homage to those sheep, and making petition, and obeying them in everything. And thereafter those 3 who were clothed in white, and had seized me by my hand, who had taken me up before, and the hand of that ram also seizing hold of me, they took me up, and set me down in the midst of the sheep before the judgment took place. And those sheep were all white, and their wool was abundant and clean. And all that had been destroyed and dispersed, and all the beasts of the field, and all the birds of the heaven, assembled in that house. And the Lord of the sheep rejoiced for the great joy, because they were all good, and had returned to his house. And I saw till they laid down the sword, which had been given to the sheep, and they had brought it back into the house, and it was sealed before the presence of the Lord. And all the sheep were invited into the house, but it held them not. And the eyes of them all were open, and they saw the good, and there was not one among them that did not see. And I saw that the house was large and broad and very full. And I saw that a white bull was born, with large horns, and all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air feared it, and made petition to him all the time. And I saw till all their generation were transformed, And they all became white bulls, and the first among them became a lamb. And that lamb became a great animal, and had great black horns on its head. And the Lord of the sheep rejoiced over it and over all the oxen. And I slept in their midst, and I awoke and saw everything. This is the vision which I saw while I slept. And I awoke and blessed the Lord of righteousness, and gave him glory. When I wept with a great weeping, and my tears stayed not till I could no longer endure it, when I saw they flowed on account of what I had seen, for everything shall come and be fulfilled, and all the deeds of men in their order were shown to me. And the last verse for today, verse 42. On that night I remembered the first dream, and because of it I wept and was troubled, because I had seen that vision. And that concludes Enoch for today. Peace be in you, my brothers and sisters. May the Lord have mercy on us all. I love you guys so very much. God bless.